Welcome back. I'm in conversation with Mr. Mark Davies, historian and author. Mark, you're, as I have been saying, you are linked. You have got a family tree with you. You are the 7th generation belonging to the family of Thomas Wood, who was among the members of almost the first British contingent to have arrived this remote northeastern part of India. And Thomas Wood in 1792 to 94, over a 2-year period, surveyed the Brahmaputra that flows within Assam. And later on, of course, he went on to survey the Irrawaddy River in adjoining Myanmar, and later, of course, a stretch of the mighty Ganges. Now, see, so long we were talking about your experience with River Thames. Now, you are also linked with the great river Brahmaputra, one of the great Indian rivers that we all know flows from China and empties into the Bay of Bengal. So can you talk a little bit about Thomas Wood, how he came here? I'm sure you have studied that, and what he did with the Brahmaputra. What was this survey of Guwahati, the report which he brought up?
Absolutely. So he was a Scotsman. He was born in Scotland.
Right.
He joined the British East India Company Army as an ensign, as a surveyor, and he was sent here to survey the river specifically in 1792, that date you have mentioned. The British had been invited by the Raja to try and reinstate him. There was some resistance locally at this time. And that's what interests me really, the difficulties that this young man faced when he came here. What was he? He was not yet 30.
Yeah.
So as well as the difficulty of surveying a river like that for the first time ever, as far as I understand, he got involved in physical confrontations, pistol fights on occasions. He had to stay because of the rain. There was a long delay in 1793 during the summer period where he was very frustrated here in Guwahati.
It was a very volatile political scenario as well. Socio-political scene was very, very disturbed.
No, exactly. And the first, he eventually did survey that length from Golpara to
Golpara,
I hope
yes.
I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Yeah.
Up to Sibsagar, although it was called
Golpara to Sibsagar, yes.
Well, it was called Ranpur at the time, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah. But what is interesting to me, again, as a historian, and I'm a geographer by background, that is my degree, so cartography and maps do interest me. But what's interesting about the maps is the way he annotates different British engagements and battles, and particularly around here, around this city, Guwahati, where there was, just before he arrived, in fact, right at the end of 1792, there was a confrontation of some kind.
So, by any chance, do you have a copy of this report, Survey of Guwahati in Assam?
Well, it's a map. He did a map. I believe
you have a map.
I have JPEGs of extracts of it.
Extracts of the report.
Of the map.
Of the map.
Yes.
Okay.
But Captain Thomas Welsh was the man in charge, and he did do a written and printed account. Published here, published in 2 editions, one in Shillong, interestingly, and one in Calcutta. I've not seen this book, but I know it exists.
When you talk of Calcutta, there is this Wood Street.
There is.
In Calcutta.
Yeah.
Is it linked by any chance to Thomas Wood?
Well, my understanding is yes. I have no actual proof of this, but that is the verdict of somebody called Phillimore, who printed a huge amount of information about all of the people engaged in the survey of India, the different mapping over many decades. It's in 5 volumes, and that's where I have got most of my biographical information about Wood. And according to him, yes, because Wood ultimately went back to Calcutta and was briefly the Surveyor General, and his children were all baptized there. Yes, so he had and he died there. So his grave is in South Park Cemetery.
Okay. So, now, if I may ask you this question, is the 7th generation descendant of Thomas Wood, who is a historian, in Oxford, as well as a geographer by training, Mark Davies. I mean, can we expect you to, does the Brahmaputra interest you? Having gone through those maps, those reports, etc., having already worked in the Thames, so this is a difficult river, Brahmaputra.
Well, of course. I mean, that is really the principal reason why I'm here. I have been to India once before on the family history trail. That was a different ancestor, a chap, same generation as Wood, called Matthew Leslie. Very interesting man as well, but again, we probably don't have much time to talk about him. It is. I feel really privileged to be able to indulge my own interest in historical research in something so personal. And what I find is that there are brilliant stories to be uncovered connected to these men. Can
you give a small insight? I mean, there are lots of stories, obviously, at that time, there are hardly any written accounts of those days, apart from the official accounts.
Yeah, well, I think in Wood's case, it's not one story. It's the fact that the difficulties he had. I mentioned the hostility locally that he had to deal with. He lost a lot of his equipment. He had to get that back. There was the climate, but also there was the British bureaucracy. When he went on to survey 400 miles of the Ganges, it took about 5 or 6 years before his superiors deigned to reimburse his expenses.
4 to 5 years?
Yes, yeah.
So he must have gone through a real difficult time.
Well, I think he was still
He surveyed the Ganges from Kanpur to Haridwar.
I think, yes, it was the other way. I think he went from
Haridwar to Kanpur.
I think so.
Okay.
But also he did a lot of other mapping. And one thing I really want to explore while I'm here is that he also trekked up to the Bhutan border from here, from Guwahati. And again, we have the map of that. Nice little notes as he went along.
Okay.
I think that will be, while I'm here, I would love to just go and walk a little bit of that same route that he did.
Are you going to do it this time?
I would, if I have time, I would like to do that. It will have changed hugely because it will all be tea. It will all be tea now.
You can drive to this place today, so there is absolutely no problem.
But the terrain will be quite different because now it will be tea. Then it wasn't, of course.
Absolutely, absolutely. On that note, we'll go for another short break. Stay on. We'll be right back.